This is Stephen Flanders, NBC News, reporting. The first American in orbit, February 20th, 1962.
2 minutes and 30 seconds and counting. This is Mercury Control.
We're coming up to the 2-minute mark before John Glenn will lift from this Earth. He's been waiting for this for 3 months. He's been here at Cape Canaveral for 2.5 months. He got the word in late November. Let's call it 3 years, actually. 3 years, yes, since he's been in the program. But the official word that he would make the first orbital flight came for him in late November of last year.
T-2, all fueling has been secured. The vapor has disappeared from the top, Jay, has it not?
It has. The vapor, LOX vapor, has disappeared. The top blow-off valves are closed.
The automatic command system in the rocket has taken control over the booster. We are approaching T-1 minute and the second go or no-go decision, the final decision on the system's check. We should have some word from Colonel Powers.
This is Mercury Control. The MA-6 launch countdown is T-1 minute and counting. T-1 minute and counting. All systems are reported in a go condition. John Glenn reports he is ready. This is Mercury Control.
T-45 and counting. All systems go.
That's the word at this moment. All systems go. There will be a...
T-35. The main umbilical cord should drop. T-30
this is
seconds.
Mercury Control. The MA-6 count. T-30 and counting. T-30 seconds and counting.
This is the last human control. At any moment, the verniers should light. General Dynamics' Tom O'Malley starts these damping motors.
The Mercury spacecraft umbilical is out. We're at T-19 seconds.
$18 seconds. The firing button has been pushed.
T-10 seconds and counting. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
there was
1,
the ignition of the verniers.
0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Liftoff.
The MA-6 vehicle has lifted off. The MA-6 vehicle has lifted off. Trajectory looks good. The MA-6 vehicle is off the launch pad. Little better than 3,000 feet. Speed a little over 200 miles an hour. Altitude about 25,000 feet. Speed better than 700. He's approaching the speed of sound and maximum Q, the greatest strain the rocket can endure.
1 minute.
Altitude 40,000 feet. Speed over 1,200 miles an hour. Vibration here in the rocket is dampened out by those vernier engines I told you about, the little side fellows that wiggle and waggle. Altitude now about 60,000 feet, speed about 1,800 miles an hour. Altitude now 75,000 feet, speed about 2,500. He's leaving the atmosphere and entering space. It looks clean. The
T+1 minute 30 seconds.
Altitude now in miles, 25 miles up, speed 3,000 miles per hour. He'll soon be America's fastest spaceman.
T+1 minute 45 seconds.
Altitude 40 miles, speed 5,000 miles an hour. The two booster engines are due to cut at any moment. The sustainer engine wiggles with the verniers to damp out the vibration.
T+2 minutes.
The booster package is dropped off. The G-forces on Glenn are heaviest here. He weighs 7.5 times his own weight.
T+2 minutes 15 seconds.
He's on his orbit. He's on his space path now, his launch path toward orbit. The pitch angle is being adjusted now for that keyhole in the sky for orbit. He's over the first of the line of picket destroyers between here and Bermuda.
T+2 minutes 30 seconds.
Altitude 60 miles, speed 7,000 miles an hour. He's halfway up to his average flight path in space. He's still under ground guidance system, of course, except for the emergency system within the booster itself. He has now got the power of the one single engine, 60,000, isn't it?
This is correct, Merrill. 60,000 feet. The astronaut will report the boosters dropping away. He probably has it this time, and at T plus 2 minutes and 35 seconds, the escape tower jettisons, and it falls away from the speeding rocket, seeking the first orbit about 100 miles over the island of Bermuda.
Altitude 90 miles, speed about 7,500 miles an hour. He is in space. And listen to the way the speed builds up now over the next 90 seconds. He must pick up almost 10,000 miles more per hour. He's over the fourth picket destroyer.
T plus 3 minutes, 30 seconds.
Altitude 100 miles, speed 10,500 miles an hour. He's about to become America's highest astronaut, topping the Shepard-Grissom flights. If he doesn't do so here, he will do so between here and the Canary Islands.
He has about 1 minute and 20 seconds of burning time left on the Atlas rocket before he will be weightless.
Altitude now about 110 miles, speed 14,000.
On its trajectory. John Glenn reports his fuel system is planned. His oxygen system is all okay. He reports his electrical power all okay.
A-OK from space at 110 miles up.
Our station reports it has a valid track on the MA-6 vehicle.
A valid track means keyhole in the sky. He's going to be right on the button. He's up now about 110 miles, a little better, in fact.
Reports his cabin pressure holding at 5.8 pounds per square inch.
T plus 4 minutes, 30 seconds.
30 seconds of burning time left. He weighs about 7.5 times his own weight at this point. In just a few seconds, he will be in a weightless state.
All systems are go.
Colonel Glenn has just reported he is
go. Is approaching its sustainer engine cutoff point. John reports all systems in the spacecraft are go. The flight trajectory still looks good.
T plus 5 minutes.
T plus 5 minutes is sustainer engine cutoff time. At any moment now, his altitude is a little better than 110 miles. His speed is 17,500
We have a report
from
the Mercury spacecraft that the sustainer engine has cut off as planned.
He is just now southwest of Bermuda.
John Glenn reports 0G and I feel fine. He says the view is tremendous.
Weightless in space on a brilliant day over the Atlantic.
He says the view is tremendous.
T plus 5.5 minutes.
Glenn reports he could see the booster turning around behind him. He advised that he thought the sight of the booster falling away behind him was a beautiful sight to see.
This booster will tag along behind the spacecraft Friendship 7 all throughout the orbits, but there will be measurable miles of distance apart.
John Glenn reports he can see a very large cloud pattern clear back toward Cape Canaveral and says it's a beautiful sight.
A beautiful sight back to Cape Canaveral, but he is in his orbit position. We've got to have an orbit
Astronaut
report.
John Glenn now reports his spacecraft has turned around. The blunt heat shield is facing the direction of flight and is tilted up about 34 degrees above horizontal. This is the desired pre-planned orbital attitude. All indications here are that we will be able to confirm orbit within a matter of a couple of minutes. This is Mercury Control.
Confirming orbit means confirming an exact orbit. John can't miss an orbit now where he is. The only thing that can stop it is that it is either perfect or they're going to fire the retros and bring him down. But it sounds like it's perfect. He's right where he should be, right on the clock. Okay?
Well, that decision of whether to go or no go has already obviously been made. It must be at this time, and everything from Spacecraft Control Center appears good and go at this time. We are now at T plus 6 minutes with the decision obviously go. Glenn will begin checking his control systems. The spacecraft is controlled by 3 separate systems, and with the Friendship 7 obeying the insertion into orbit command, the astronaut knows the automatic system works properly. First, he checks his manual controls. This is the system where the spacecraft controls are connected mechanically, and the positioning jets react to the pilot's commands without the use of electronics. The third system of control is called fly-by-wire.
This is Mercury Control. We would like to confirm the liftoff time as 9:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at Cape Canaveral. Liftoff time 9:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That's for the
Friendship
established...
7 spacecraft, that's pilot John Glenn, is now in contact with Bermuda.
He is
This
just
is Mercury Control.
Glenn and his spacecraft now are just east of Bermuda, approaching the carrier Enterprise. And that timing is essential for the establishment of the flight records that Peter Hackus told you about earlier.
Jay, have you any word from the ship?
No, I don't. I believe that we're going to have a voice tape now from John Glenn in about 5 seconds, coming up from spacecraft.
Roger, EPI is started. Roger, scope is retracting. The scope is retracted, light is out. Roger, we shall start pilot TM on scope retract. Roger.
That's Glenn talking to Shepard in control on the ground. He's well over 1,000 miles. We seem to have lost that contact for the moment, but the ground has not. I hope you noticed how calmly Glenn was reporting all the positions of his equipment and the functions of that equipment. He must be confirmed in orbit because, as you noticed, everything was pretty calm. If he wasn't, there would have been an abort, and the abort would have fired the retro rockets, and he would not have been reporting what he was reporting at the time. Periscope retracted, although the periscope does have to be retracted for a descent. He should be now. I'm trying to read the clock, Jay. What do you get, 10:55, 11 minutes?
10:55 since liftoff.
He's almost dead center over the Atlantic. He's well east of the carrier Enterprise. So we've got to have some word fairly soon as to whether he's successfully in the measured orbit or whether they're going to try or indeed have started to bring him down near the Canary Islands. To Colonel Powers at Spacecraft Control. .11:30 indeed since liftoff, 11 minutes 30 seconds.
This is Mercury Control. I have the figures on the cutoff conditions, that is the engine cutoff conditions on the MA6 vehicle, and the orbital velocity and insertion details. Atlas 109D, carrying the Friendship 7 spacecraft, cut its final engine off approximately 503 miles east of Cape Canaveral at an altitude of approximately 100 miles. Its velocity at that time was approximately 17,500 miles. That means that the orbit of the Friendship 7 spacecraft will vary from a low altitude of about 100 miles to a peak altitude of about 160 miles. We estimate at this time that the period of the orbit will be approximately 89 minutes. All of these numbers will undoubtedly be clarified somewhat as we get more data on the orbit. Under current conditions, John Glenn in the Friendship 7 spacecraft is traveling at a velocity of 17,545 miles an hour and is in an orbit ranging from 100 miles at the perigee or low point to an altitude of 160 miles at its apogee or high point. At this time, we have the tape recording of John Glenn's voice as he lifted off from Cape Canaveral and flew the first 6 or 7 minutes of his flight. This is Mercury Control standing by while you hear this tape. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. Roger, the clock is operating. We're underway. Roger, reading you loud and clear. Roger, we're programming and roll okay. A little bumpy along about here. Roger. Stand by for 20 seconds. Roger. 3, 2, 1, mark. Roger, backup clock is started.
Fuel 102, 101, oxygen 78, 100, amps 27.
Roger, loud and clear. Flight path is good. 6-9.
Roger, checks okay. Mine was 70 on your mark. There's some vibration area coming up here now.
Roger, reading you loud and clear, John.
It's coming into IQ a little bit. That little contrail went by the window or something there.
Roger.
Fuel 102, 101, oxygen 78 to 101, amps 24, still okay. We're smoothing out some now, getting out of the vibration area.
Roger, you're through max Q. Flight path is very good. Pitch 4-3.
Getting out real fine. Cabin pressure coming down 5-7. Okay, flight very smooth now.
Roger, flight path is good.
Cabin pressure is holding at 6-1. Okay.
Roger, cabin pressure holding at 6-1.
Roger, I've had some oscillations, but they seem to be damp. On 2 minutes, and fuel is 102, 101, oxygen 78, 102. They're building to 6.
Roger, reading you loud and clear. Flight path looks good. Pitch 25. Stand by for staging.
Roger, Pico.
Pico.
Let's see the tower go. I saw the smoke go by the window.
Roger, we confirm staging on TM.
Roger. We'll have about 1.5 Gs. Over. There the tower went right then. Have the tower in sight, way out.
Oh, Roger, we confirm on TM.
Edison Tower is green.
Roger.
1.5 Gs.
Roger, 7 still reading you loud and clear. Flight path looks good.
Auto retro jettison is off. Emergency retro jettison fuse switch off. Or retro jettison fuse switch off. DF2 normal.
Flight path looks good. Steering is good.
Roger, understand everything looks good. He's starting to build again a little bit.
Roger.
Roger, Bermuda, stand by. This is Friendship 7, fuel 103, 101, oxygen 78 to 100. All voltages above 2.5, amps 2.6.
Roger, still reading you loud and clear. Flight path is very good. Pitch -3.
Roger. I pitch checks at -7 on your -3.
Roger, 7.
I'll explain this in a moment, but Glenn is approaching the Canary Islands.
7, no fuel, 103, 101, oxygen 78 to 100, amps 2.5, cabin pressure holding at 5.8.
Roger, reading you loud and clear, 7. Cape is go. We're standing by for you.
Roger, Cape is go and I am go. Our capsule is in good shape.
Roger, all systems go, 7.
Oxygen 78, 100, cabin pressure holding steady at 5.8, amps is 2.6. All systems are go.
Roger, 20 seconds to Seco.
Roger.
Flight path looks very good. 10 seconds, flight path still looks good.
Roger. Seco. Lots of grapes fired, okay.
Roger, stand by.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Capsule is turning around. Oh, that view is tremendous.
Roger, turnaround has started.
Capsule turning around, and I could see the booster during turnaround just a couple of 100 yards behind me. It was beautiful.
Roger, 7. You have a go, at least 7 orbits.
Roger. Understand go for at least 7 orbits. This is Friendship 7. I can see clear back a big cloud pattern way back across toward the Cape. Beautiful sight.
Roger, still reading you loud and clear. Next transmission, Bermuda.
Glenn is approaching the African coast. This is the first of the tracking stations. He's been in contact with Bermuda, of course. We'll pick this up as we can. He's been in contact with Bermuda as he went into orbit. You heard him say, go for 7 orbits. That was the control, the ground control telling him. You heard him say he was go. And as you notice from those calm reports, he's not only go, he's enjoying it. I just want to explain briefly to you that the roll he spoke of on takeoff was programmed on the rocket. It must make a quarter of a turn in lifting the first 4 feet. He reported it done successfully and on time.
This is Mercury Control. While you were listening to the tape of John Glenn's communications with the Capcom, Alan Shepard here in the control center, the Friendship 7 spacecraft has passed on its orbital track, has now passed over the Canaries, and is about to establish contact with our tracking station at Kano in Africa. As it passed in the vicinity of the Canaries, John Glenn reported, I am very comfortable. All systems are okay. He reported that the horizon was a brilliant blue and that he had the Canaries in sight out through his window. He also said he had a beautiful view of the African coast and that part of the Canaries were obscured by clouds. The flight appears at this time to be proceeding as planned. Friendship 7 is in orbit, passing in the vicinity of Kano, Africa at this time. This is Mercury Control.
Orbit is confirmed. He will stay on this. A perigee of about 100 miles high, an apogee of about 160 miles high. This means he's good for 7 orbits, although they'll only keep him up there for 3 if everything remains in go condition. But it means that gravity can't bring him down before 7 orbits at the earliest. And, of course, it'll take the retro rockets to bring him down at 3. So we go, and he's almost in contact now with Kano, Nigeria, the second tracking station. His orbital track, by the way, is being paralleled by aircraft from the United States Air Forces in Europe. They're flying on a line from Morocco across southern Libya, across the Sudan, and almost over to the African coast. So he's got friends below him if he can spot the aircraft. But you've noticed he's already read off 2 geographic references on the globe. The Canary Islands, he said light cloud cover, and the African west coast. He's flown over the entire naval forces spread out across the Atlantic, spread out between Cape Canaveral and Bermuda. He has not seen yet, of course, the Atlantic naval forces below us near Puerto Rico, near San Juan. They all remain on station until he's down safely. And we are go. He is over the middle of Africa. He should now be about 125 to 130 miles up in space, and that makes him America's highest astronaut and, in fact, the world's. Jay?
At T-minus 24, or T-plus 24 minutes, he was scheduled to make his first 60-degree yaw maneuver, which should be taking place about this time while he's over the Kano, Nigeria tracking station, Merrill. And he will make this yaw maneuver for the first time manually, controlling his spacecraft, his choice, either to the right or to the left. This will be made with the results fired back through the Beltsville, Maryland Goddard Computing Center and back to the Spacecraft Control Center here in Cape Canaveral.
This is what makes his flight different, of course, from the 2 Russian flights. Good as they were, they did not control their craft in space and did not try to. This makes Glenn the world's highest pilot. He's flying.
After completing this 60-degree yaw maneuver that he is apparently through at this time, Glenn will look through his periscope, which is pointing directly toward the ground beneath him, and with the use of landmarks, track his flight path. He'll try to line his spacecraft up again correctly with a 34-degree tilt with the horizontal. All of this is backup systems to be used by the astronaut in case instrumentation goes out and he needs to know his exact position at all times. Actually, he is flying the spacecraft by the seat of the pants. That's an old flying term. This is one of the maneuvers Glenn will attempt, none of which have yet been done in space by any spaceman. Russia's cosmonauts Gagarin and Titov rode their spacecraft through an automatic flight, as Merrill pointed out a while ago. This is indeed a triumph already for astronaut John Glenn.
He should have a report from Kano, Nigeria, on astronaut Glenn's impressions as he went over Central Africa. He has been in communication with Kano, should have been. In the gap between the Canary Islands and Kano, there's about 1,000 miles there that has no voice communication. However, 1,000 miles at the way Glenn is traveling is pretty small peanuts. Where are we? 28 minutes and 25 seconds since blastoff, and he is over the southern Sudan. Over the southern Sudan, proceeding now up on the Zanzibar tracking station on the island of Zanzibar off the east coast of Africa. And he's also beginning to approach the line of dusk. He is ending his first day already. Jay?
Yes, that's right, Merrill. At this time, he is scheduled to test the spacecraft's controls to make sure they're working properly before he enters the dark side of the Earth, where the temperature will drop rapidly and could affect the control of the spacecraft. After he is in the darkness of night over the Indian Ocean, Glenn will give the controls another check to see if the temperature change from the extreme hot to extreme cold affected the attitude jets and other control devices. We might explain the temperature should drop to about 0 on all surfaces of the spacecraft Friendship 7. When he's in the daylight, the side of the spacecraft pointing toward the sun holds a temperature of about 250 degrees above 0, and the side away from the sun in light holds 150.
The Friendship spacecraft, Friendship 7, is in orbit with John Glenn at the controls. Contact was made with our tracking station in Kano at 9 minutes after 10 Eastern Standard Time. At the time of engine cutoff, the Atlas launch vehicle was approximately 503 statute miles away from its launch pad at Cape Canaveral. It was at an altitude of 100 miles. It was traveling at a speed of 17,530 miles. So the orbital details are the perigee, or low point, about 100 miles, the apogee, or high point, about 160 miles. The speed of the Friendship 7 spacecraft is now 17,545 miles per hour. All information we have as of this time indicates the mission is proceeding as planned. And this is Mercury Control.
Proceeding as planned, a little bit faster in speed and a little bit lower than planned, but going all A-OK. And where is he? Well, we've got him just over southern Ethiopia, coming up on the east coast of Africa at 30 minutes and 50 seconds since blastoff. He now has an escort somewhere below him, if he can spot them, of the United States Air Forces from the Middle East Command and the Royal Air Force Command from Nairobi. He has two stations he can now contact to talk to, the tracking station on the island of Zanzibar and the ship in the Indian Ocean, a converted fast freighter called Coastal Sentry, which is so loaded with electronics, if anybody lights a match, it blows 1,000 fuses. Jay?
Now at the control of Zanzibar tracking station, and 31 minutes after liftoff, Glenn will be giving his first 30 minutes progress report, an evaluation of the spacecraft's performance thus far, the traditional job of the test pilot. He'll give a report on the fuel supply, attitude control jets, cabin pressure, cabin temperature, relative humidity in the Friendship 7, details on his oxygen supply and his pressure. The astronaut check will also report on his spacesuit. This will go on every 30 minutes during the flight. He's already, earlier, taken his own blood pressure check, reported that to the Canary Island tracking station. After the standard instrument reports, Glenn will make a navigation cross-check between his periscope and window to see if he can confirm the spacecraft's attitude position in relation with the Earth. He'll then check the elapsed time on his clock, correcting it, if necessary, with the flight clock. We're in the spacecraft control center here. He'll also report the retro-rocket fire time on his clock, both for an immediate descent to Earth and for re-entry at the end of the first orbit, if necessary.
This is Mercury Control. Our indications from the tracking network now are that John Glenn and his Friendship 7 spacecraft have passed out into the Indian Ocean. He's now flying over the Indian Ocean, approaching our Indian Ocean ship. A report I have here from our Kano station indicates the astronaut's status is go. He sounds like he is in excellent voice. His heart action is excellent. And we have an indication that he did his first eating as he passed over Kano. He has performed a yaw maneuver and has exercised the manual control systems. As of this time in the Friendship 7 flight, the spacecraft is approaching the Indian Ocean ship. All systems indicate go at this time. This is Mercury Control.
Well, it's obvious that when a man spends an evening away from home, he's got to go out to dinner. Jay, explain the dinner.
Well, the dinner consists of 3,000 calories of meat, beef, we should say, and mixed vegetables, and 2 tubes, much like the toothpaste tubes that you use in your own home. He also has 6 pounds of water on board, and he drinks this from the tube by squeezing it into his mouth. You must remember that John Glenn is now in a weightless state. He has been in a weightless state for about 38 minutes since his liftoff. 5 minutes after liftoff, he went into the weightless state. So in order to eat now, he must depend solely on the muscles of his stomach and his throat to help bring the food down as he takes it from the tube, much back from his infant days.
Geographically, if you want to know approximately where his flight path is and where he is at the moment, he's southeast of the Cocos Islands in the Indian Ocean. He's about 750 miles southeast of it, a little less. About 600 miles southeast of the Cocos Islands in the Indian Ocean. He's in darkness, of course, and he is coming up on the Australian coast, but more importantly, he is passing over Australian ships.
Astronaut John Glenn is now in voice contact with astronaut Gordon Cooper, who is the capsule communicator at Mouchet. In the conversation, John has indicated, "I'm doing real well up here. All systems are go. I'm having no problems at all." He described his sight. He talked about cloud cover after he passed over the coast of Africa and crossed the Indian Ocean. He reported a high haze layer on the night side of the world. The voice communications are being recorded at this time. They will be broadcast shortly after we pass on beyond Mouchet, Australia. This is Mercury Control.
We'll get back to Mercury Control, spacecraft control, for those broadcasts in the gap between Woomera, which is where astronaut Glenn is approaching now, and Canton Island. This is another long reach without voice contact. In fact, Canton doesn't have voice contact with him. And then he's got another long reach across the Pacific between Canton and Hawaii. He won't be alone, though, and we'll tell you who's with him. He should be just about in the area between Adelaide and Woomera, Australia now. And if the skies are clear, he may be able to pick out the city of Adelaide. Although it's a little late in the day out there. What is it? It's about 1:30 plus 2 hours. It's almost 3-something in the morning, so maybe Adelaide didn't stay up late. But Perth did. Perth is all lit up for him, and so is Brisbane, Australia, both cities. And they're there for geographical navigation. Colonel Powers at Spacecraft Control.
John Glenn in the Friendship 7 spacecraft is carrying on a conversation with astronaut Gordon Cooper at Mouchet, Australia, as he passes over the Australian continent. He has reported that he has observed very bright lights, and from his discussion with Gordon Cooper, we have assumed that he is observing the city of Perth, Australia. His message to Gordon Cooper was, "Thank everybody for turning them on," meaning, of course, the lights. Our tracking station at Woomera, Australia, reports contact with the spacecraft at 43 minutes after the hour, 10:43 Eastern Standard Time. This is Mercury Control.
That message to Perth, Australia, thank you for the lights. He spotted them. Now Brisbane coming up. And Brisbane, of course, is also... I can't use this expression because on the BBC it isn't good. But all the lights are lighted. How's that?
Merrill, it's been 56 minutes since the Atlas Mercury rocket hurled Glenn into orbit from here. And this is time for his second 30-minute report. This one will be a little early, But this time in the flight plan, it's more convenient than later, when all tracking stations will run a high-frequency voice check on Glenn. He'll make the report to Mouchet and also to Woomera to see if both can pick him up. In addition to the standard reports required in this 30-minute report, Glenn will make a vision test. This will serve a twofold purpose, to see how well his eyesight is on the dark side and if the weightless state of some 50 minutes has affected the clarity of his 20/20 vision. Here he'll also conduct another blood pressure check, pretty much is the same as the first one over the Canary Islands, shortly after orbital insertion. First, he'll take his own blood pressure by pumping up the blood pressure cuff strapped around his arm. Then he'll use the bungee cord on the spacecraft control panel for exercise and again test his blood pressure. From this moment on, scientists will be more than interested in the effect of weightlessness that has had on the astronaut since the burnout of the Atlas rocket. As you pointed out earlier, Merrill, Titov in his flight became very space sick, comparable pretty much to seasickness, I suppose. But Glenn has along with him 6 small hypodermic needles that he can inject into himself if he should need to keep the weightless sickness from coming on. They're going to try to, if possible, to counteract this before it gets started. And he has this along with other pain killer capsules and tablets aboard.
Right now, if we're in luck and all things are well, he should be just north of Lord Howe Island in the Coral Sea and approaching the coast of New Caledonia. It is darkness, but it is the beginning of the ending of the night in the Western Pacific.
This is going to get a little confusing.
Right here it begins to get confusing because the first light he's going to see is going to be Wednesday morning in the Western Pacific. And he's going to see a little bit of that, and then he's going to see the daylight of the Tuesday he left.
I think before this day is over, you're going to say you worked a whole week and you're going to demand 2 days off.
3 days.
3 days. The ultra high-frequency voice check, the high-frequency, rather, from ultra high-frequency transmitter to the high-frequency transmitter should be underway at this moment. He has been airborne hour, 4 minutes, and 40 seconds as we watch our NBC elapsed time clock.
Landing time still estimated at 2:20 this afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. He has the chance, as we told you, to make 3 orbits. That's just enough daylight in the Atlantic for him. And if I know John Glenn, he'll probably insist that we go, provided everything is functioning correctly and provided the ground tells him that they're able to support him correctly. John Glenn's space capsule should be in the vicinity of Corpus Christi, Texas. He should be over Canaveral, or north of Canaveral, I should say, but in the Canaveral area. In just a few moments, the decision, as you know, has been made, as Jay told you, as to whether he is to be committed to a second orbit. And we've got to have some word from spacecraft control pretty shortly, because those retro rockets would have been fired already if they were bringing him down. So it looks like 2 orbits go.
Apparently this is correct, and as you pointed out, in about 2 minutes, he will be over the Cape Canaveral area, and we must admit the fastest trip around the world from here anyway, and he'll be speeding about 100 miles up at 17,545 miles an hour as he approaches the insertion of his second orbital flight path. And unless the decision of no-go was made, we haven't confirmed this as of yet from the Spacecraft Control Center. This will be the situation. Otherwise, he is now re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. Merrill?
Well, he should be a little northeast of Houston, just about over New Orleans. We've got to have that decision pretty quickly. It must have been made for a second orbit, or we would have heard the starting of the sequence for a descent. And he will now be in communication with fellow astronaut Gus Grissom in Bermuda, fellow astronaut Al Shepard here at Cape Canaveral, and by, of course, the high-speed landline links with the Goddard Research Center in Beltsville, Maryland. The telemetry, the voice discussion will tell us exactly what the condition is in space and where he's going on the next one. We've just changed maps. His orbit becomes a little bit further south all the way around, except that he gets closer to Hawaii coming up across the Pacific. He also gets very close to something that is very close to President Kennedy, the slot where Mr. Kennedy lost his boat. We'll take you over that one during World War II. We'll take you over that one when John Glenn gets there. We're waiting for the decision now from spacecraft control on the commission to a second orbit. This has to be, the second orbit really commences in about 3 minutes. Where are we? 31, 32,
2 minutes from
32
second
coming
orbit.
up. We're 2 minutes from second orbit, which will commence just about over Cape Hatteras and take Glenn just north and northeast of Bermuda, and then he'll start dropping down southeastward to a line below the Canary Islands. He'll cross the African coast about on the Spanish Sahara coastline between the Canaries and the Cape Verde Islands. This will take him almost over Kano, Nigeria, where before he was flying north of it. But again, the United States Air Forces in Europe have moved their patrols southward, so they are closer to the track if needed. Again, the Navy at sea has moved its patrols, so its air and ship patrols are still roughly under the orbital track. This man can't be alone even if he tries to be.
No privacy even 160 miles up, huh?
182, 183, 83 coming up. He's got to be over the East Coast by now. We've got to have some decision pretty quick.
He should be approaching us just about at this moment. 1 minute to go on the completion of the first orbit. You know, John's voice has been very calm and relaxed and very jubilant, actually, through the tapes that we've heard of his transmissions. Wonder kindly how his family feels up in New Concord, Ohio. Let's switch now to Tom Clark of station WHIZ to give us the situation in New Concord.
Here at New Concord, there is the atmosphere of success now. We have checked the home of Mr. and Mrs. John Glenn Sr. in New Concord, but they have not appeared on the outside of the two-story frame residence. The word is that they will not make an appearance until their astronaut son has completed his mission and is safely aboard one of the recovery ships. A crowd of 500 to 600 people in the Muskingum College gym has thinned out once again, and regular business of the day apparently is being resumed until Colonel Glenn's orbit has been achieved. At 15 minutes before launching, a whistle sounded on the campus and all classes were dismissed, everyone crowded into the gym. As the huge Atlas left the launching pad, church bells and whistles sounded throughout New Concord to carry the message, and here in the Muskingum College gym, this was the reaction. This is Tom Clark, NBC News in New Concord, Ohio.
The spacecraft Friendship 7 is in its second orbit at this moment. Let's check in at the Glenn home in Arlington, Virginia. Here's NBC's Bryson Rash.
We have here the Reverend Frank Irwin of the Little Falls United Presbyterian Church, the minister for the astronaut and the Glenn family. He has been with them throughout the morning. What was the feeling at the moment of liftoff?
The feeling at the moment of liftoff was one of anxiety, confidence, gratitude. This is a moment that they've all waited for a long time.
Were there any comments passed at that time?
No, it was silent. Everyone had their own thoughts. I'm sure everyone had a prayer because these are people of prayer.
Do you feel that the faith that the astronaut has played a part in this, his career, his life, his success today?
Definitely. John has a fundamental faith that is a part of his heritage. It has been bred in him from his family, and he practices this. It's a part of everything he does.
Thank you. We have talked with the Reverend Frank Irwin of the Little Falls United Presbyterian Church, the minister for John Glenn Jr. and his family. This is Bryson Rash at the Glenn home in Arlington, Virginia.
We are waiting for the official word that John Glenn has been committed to a second orbital flight around the Earth. He should be approaching Bermuda from the northwest at this point. And he has been in space now. He was launched 1 hour and 36 minutes ago. We are watching our own radar screens here at Cape Canaveral, tracking the capsule. And the screen is turning so rapidly, it looks, well, you've got to remember that Glenn and that capsule's only 9 feet long, and it's 100 miles up in space, but that radar screen is turning as rapidly as if it would track a landing jet plane. That gives you some idea of the speed. It's 17,534 miles an hour, to be exact. And we've got to get the word on where he is. He's obviously in the second orbit. Jay told you the second orbit commenced 3 minutes ago by the clock. He would have been halfway down by now if they were going to bring him down, so the only thing I can say safely is he's halfway between Cape Hatteras and Bermuda. Okay?
Merrill, our little birdies have already told us here that the spacecraft Friendship 7 could be in contact with Washington. And so anyway, we'll be standing by here whenever this comes up. This could be the reason.
We have a reaction report ready for us from Western Europe, one of the parts of the world that have been listening to these broadcasts from the Cape over various frequencies all morning. So let's go to NBC's Robin McNeil in London.
People all over Britain tuned in their radios at lunchtime today to hear the latest on Colonel John Glenn. The BBC is running a continuous broadcast of NBC's radio report from Cape Canaveral. Up till now, the British have certainly been something less than excited. After the repeated postponements, Glenn's news value in Britain withered from banner headlines to one paragraph every now and then. Some people have been heard to mutter that they doubted whether the flight would ever take place. But there's been none of the rancor or smugness in Britain evident during previous American space setbacks. Inevitably, America's wide-open publicity treatment of each planned attempt and each frustration attracts criticism. But no responsible Englishman would want America to adopt the Soviet policy of complete secrecy. Now that the flight is on, such political thoughts recede. Englishmen, like Americans, are caught up in the details of one man's not-so-simple drama. Robin McNeil, NBC News, London.
As Robin points out, we are all an open society. These frequencies, even those that John Glenn is using, have been published. We want the world to know what's going on every step of the way, including the Russians who are getting us translated.
This is Mercury Control. I have some new acquisition times. Our initial contact with the Friendship 7 spacecraft from here in the control center was established at 21 minutes after the hour. That is 11:21 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We were able to hear the remote relay of the voice contact between John Glenn and our tracking station at Guaymas, Mexico. During that voice broadcast, Glenn reported that he had observed some small particles near the capsule moving at approximately the same speed as he came through the sunrise phenomena. These particles caused him no difficulty, but he did observe them during the flight. They appeared to glow in the sunrise. As he passed across the southern part of the United States, Glenn reported some minor difficulties with his attitude control system. As of this time, Glenn is manually flying the spacecraft on what we call fly-by-wire, a form of automatic pilot-type device. He made contact with the Bermuda tracking station at 26 minutes after the hour. That is 11:26 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. He is continuing to maintain attitude control with the fly-by-wire system. He reported that it was very smooth and was not having any trouble controlling the spacecraft. As he passed across the east coast of the United States, he reported he had a beautiful view of the coast. He, at that time, could not see the Cape, but expected to do so shortly. He has now passed east of Bermuda, going down the second leg of the second orbit in the Friendship 7 spacecraft. This is the Mercury Control Center.
His second Tuesday. We'll have to clarify when he gets back home whether he saw junk floating around out there in space with him, or whether he saw some of the debris that's usually left in the posigrade rocket containers that might have just broken loose late and floated by. In any case, he's well on his way, 11:26 into second orbit. That's 5 minutes ago, isn't it? Yes, 5 minutes ago coming up. And he is, in 5 minutes, committed over Bermuda. He's east of the Forrestal, which would put him about 600 miles out into the Atlantic again on his second day, his second night, and his third morning.
Merrill, after completing his capsule clock check, this is to reset his time-elapse clock inside his spacecraft about an hour and 40 minutes after flight, after liftoff. Glenn will attempt an unusual test. This should be going on at this time. This is an ocular gyric test programmed by the flight surgeon. Basically, the test will be to see if the astronaut still has his normal sense of balance after staying in continuous state of weightlessness this long. They'll see if Glenn can tell the difference between up and down by flying the spacecraft in different positions. As we heard from Colonel Powers moments ago, he has command of the spacecraft on fly-by-wire. To his right-hand control system, he is using small electrical switches at this time to control the pitch and yaw of his spacecraft through the attitude control jets using hydrogen peroxide. He'll see if he can maintain this correct tilt at 34 degrees with the horizontal, and apparently he's doing so, and the weightless state has not affected him at all after being 1 hour and almost 1 hour and 40 minutes in the weightless state.
An interesting point develops here, Jay. If you've been following John Glenn's voice from outer space very carefully and his talk with the astronauts, when he was over Australia, Cooper said that his yaw, pitch, and roll maneuvers had been all good. In other words, the attitude control system was then functioning well. But Shorty Powers just reported that the attitude control system was causing some difficulty over the United States, and that Glenn had gone over to manual control. Now, if it is in the automatic system, he may have to fly this thing all the way around.
He could very well, and again, scientists here were quite concerned before the flight of the temperature change. Flying with 0 degree of temperature on his spacecraft in the dark side, then coming back into the bright Wednesday daylight, as you said earlier, the side of the spacecraft pointing toward the sun now has a temperature of 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and the side of the spacecraft away from the sun has a temperature of 150 degrees. However, the temperature within the spacecraft in Glenn's suit is a very comfortable 68 to 72 degrees.
We now have the tape recordings made during the pass of the Friendship 7 spacecraft across the southern United States, in which astronaut John Glenn had voice contact with Alan Shepard here in the control center. That tape is ready to play now. Stand by for the tape recording. This is Mercury Control out.
Roger, Friendship 7, this is Canaveral contact. How do you copy, over?
Friendship 7 to Canaveral, read you loud and clear. How me, over?
Roger, Friendship 7, Canaveral contact, reads loud and clear. Stand by on Capcom, please.
Roger.
7, this is Capcom. Would you give us the difficulty you've been having in yaw in ASCS, over?
Roger, this is Friendship 7. I'm going on fly-by-wire so I can control more accurately. It just started as I got to Wymus, and appears to be, it drifts off in yaw to the right at about 1 degree per second. It will go over to an attitude of about 20 degrees and hold at that, and when it hits about a 20 degree point, it then goes into orientation mode and comes back to 0, and it was cycling back and forth in that mode. I am on fly-by-wire now. I am controlling manually, over.
Oh, Roger. Understand. Do you have retrofire times for 2 Bravo and 2 Charlie?
This is Friendship 7, the negative.
Okay, 2 Bravo, 015000. 2 Charlie, 020559er. Over.
This is Friendship 7, understand 1 Bravo is 01 plus 50 plus 00. 2 Charlie, correction, 2 Bravo is 015000. 2 Charlie is 02 plus 05 plus 59. Is that affirmed?
That is affirmative. Stand by 1, please.
This is Friendship 7. What appears to have happened is I believe I have no 1 pound thrust in left yaw, So it drifts over out of limits and then hits it with the high thrust, over.
Roger, 7, we concur here. I recommend you remain fly-by-wire.
Roger, remaining fly-by-wire. This is Friendship 7 standing.
Roger, 7, we're having a little difficulty. Start off on your 30-minute report.
Roger, this is Friendship 7 controlling manually on fly-by-wire. Having no trouble controlling, very smooth and easy, controls very nicely. Fuses are still the same on the left panel.
Roger.
Squib is armed, auto retrojettison is off. ASCS is fly-by-wire, auto gyro normal. All T handles are in, the retro delay is normal. I have beautiful view out the window of the coast at present time, just departing. Can see the way down across Florida. Cannot quite see the Cape yet.
Roger.
Continuing with report, no sequence panel light showing. Only abnormal position landing bag is off. The EPI is indicating OK. Control fuel is 80 auto, 100 manual. Retrograde time set in is 04 plus 32 plus 28, over.
Roger, still reading you.
Roger, are we in communication yet, over?
Say again, 7.
Roger, I'll be out of communication fairly soon. I thought if the other call was in, I would stop the check, over.
Not as yet. We'll get you next time.
Roger, continuing report, cabin pressure 5.5 and holding nicely. Cabin air is 9.5. Relative humidity 2.0. Coolant quantity is 6.7. Temperature is 6.7 on the suit. 5.8 on the pressure. Steam temperature is 5.0 and coming down slowly. Oxygen is 70-100. Amps 2.2. Only really unusual thing so far beside ASCS trouble were the little particles, luminous particles around the capsule, just thousands of them, right at sunrise over the Pacific, over.
Roger, 7, we have all that. Looks like you're in good shape. Remain on fly-by-wire for the moment.
Roger, Friendship 7.
John Glenn may be cool up there, but I'm going to say it for him. He's just established a world's record for the Russians to shoot at. 4,000 miles as a flying test pilot in outer space.
John has passed his halfway point in the triple orbit flight by now, too, Merrill. And at 2 hours and 17 minutes, about 6 minutes ago, he began one of his most difficult assignments. And he just, as we heard on the delayed tape, said that he had no problem at all navigating by the window using the horizon. Now, this assignment we're talking about that he is in, or just completing, is to navigate by using a pre-selected star while he's in the dark side over the Indian Ocean. Now, let's assume that the Friendship 7 should lose all instrumentation with the ground. Then Glenn would have to navigate the spacecraft himself, keeping it in proper position with the Earth for immediate re-entry in case of trouble. Assuming the astronaut cannot see any ground references on the dark side of the Earth, but he said a while ago he could, then he could only depend on the stars for a reference to keep in line properly with the Earth.
Sorry, Jay, we have to go back to Colonel Powers at Spacecraft Control.
Roger, this is Mercury Control. The Friendship 7 spacecraft is proceeding in its orbital flight around the Earth. It's in its second orbit around the Earth at this time. As of 51 minutes after the hour, that's 11:51 Eastern Standard Time, our tracking station in Zanzibar reported contact with the spacecraft. At 12:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Friendship 7 spacecraft made contact with the Indian Ocean ship. Astronaut John Glenn is still controlling the attitude of the Mercury spacecraft with the fly-by-wire manual control system. This is a system in the spacecraft in which movements of the control handle by the pilot send electrical impulses into a black box, which in turn cause the valves at the perimeter of the spacecraft to open, allowing the hydrogen peroxide to escape. These are the jets that effect the changes in attitude of the spacecraft. This differs from his normal manual system in that the black box is placed between the pilot and the valves. In the full manual system, he has a mechanical linkage to these valves. Friendship 7 spacecraft is now over the Indian Ocean ship, about in the center of the Indian Ocean. As a matter of interest, because of cloud cover and winds aloft, the flare experiment, which was planned from the Indian Ocean ship, has been canceled. Astronaut John Glenn's condition remains good, his attitude is good, and he is working as a test pilot. This is Mercury Control.
I'll have to correct Colonel Powers, but I'm not really correcting him. That was a delayed tape recording. Astronaut John Glenn right now is back over the center of Australia on the clock, but he has set a considerable record, and it looks like he's going to set a butte for the Russians to try to copy. It looks like he's going to fly this thing all the way around in one orbit. He started over the middle of the United States. He has now covered 8, 10, 12, almost 13,000 miles as a flying test pilot in outer space. Back to Colonel Powers at Spacecraft Control.
This is Mercury Control. The Friendship 7 spacecraft made contact with our tracking station at Mouchet, Australia at 10 after the hour. That's 12:10 Eastern Standard Time. Astronaut John Glenn is now in voice contact with Gordon Cooper at Mouchet, Australia. This is Mercury Control.
Let's see, that was at 10. That was 5 minutes ago. He started his contact with Mouchet, Australia. Again, he's starting the long haul and the descent across the Pacific. Again, this is a necessary time and place to correct the retro-firing rockets in case they decide to end this after 2 orbits. But it looks like it's going so well, if John Glenn can stand the strain of flying by wire, in other words, indirectly, manually controlling his spacecraft in space, he'll go for 3. And this is going to be a wonderful, well, it's going to be a tremendous achievement. This is flying in orbit, in space. This isn't automatic. This man isn't floating around by himself. He's controlling it. And this is a record no one expected to have to try. He was supposed to go back onto automatic flight control, automatic pilot, about every 10 minutes. And here he is so far. He's gone halfway around the world by hand.
The only thing automatic at this point about his flight, Merrill, is the fact that the orbit is automatic. No matter how he turns this spacecraft, it's going to stay in one position. And now, in control of the Mouchet, Australia tracking station and talking to fellow astronaut Leroy Gordon Cooper, he will try again to test his ability to identify the 2 cities in Australia. First, he's directly over Perth, or he has flown directly over Perth. And he'll also try again at Brisbane. They're about 2,600 miles apart, with Perth located on the west coast of Australia and Brisbane located on the east coast. Glenn will try to identify Perth on the west coast of Australia, first the city of 272,586 people. He thanked them on the first orbit for keeping their lights on, and it is the state capital of Western Australia, that's state. In the resort area of Brisbane is located on the eastern coast of Australia, and it is the capital of the state of Queensland and one of the country's major Pacific Ocean ports. Its population is 402,172. It's a much larger city than Perth, and as a matter of fact, it is the largest city in land area in Australia. He's about 160 miles high. He had a little trouble with cloud cover there before, but he should be able to identify possibly both of the cities without any trouble from this height.
This is Merrill Muller speaking for Jay Barbary and myself, bringing you the running commentary from Cape Canaveral. We're waiting for a spacecraft control report on what astronaut John Glenn has seen on the night side of the Earth. He is now in his second Wednesday morning and just about to come back into Tuesday, as a matter of fact, because he's approaching the international dateline. And as he said on his first orbit, it was a short day. Well, so far, it's been a short 2 days.
This is Mercury Control. Our tracking station on Canton Island reports contact with the Friendship 7 spacecraft at 12:31 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and our station on Hawaii reports contact at 12:39 Eastern Standard Time. We are continuing to analyze the difficulties with the attitude control system. The fact that the pilot is aboard and has the ability to analyze his problem and take judgmental corrective action is a demonstration of the value of man in space flight. We will continue to analyze the progress of the flight and make our decisions timely enough to make sure that we fly the mission as best as possible. This is Mercury Control.
Fire the mission as best as possible. In other words, end it now, bring him back, or let him try for 3. He has a voice in this decision, but not the final voice.
At this moment, Merrill, the decision of go or no-go must be going on, because 2.5 minutes from now, if the decision is no-go, the retro rocket sequence will have to start as he approaches the west coast of the U.S. to bring him down, as we said earlier, some 450 miles east of the island of Bermuda. Now, this all-important decision, whether or not enough hydrogen peroxide fuel for his attitude control jets remain on board after him flying it by wire and manually for this length of time, how much it takes is a big problem in the cold nighttime area.
Yep.
And a while ago, we might point out about 10 minutes ago, John got an opportunity,
Stand by and listen to me.
or he could have had an opportunity, or should have, we should say, for his second space snack. And it's not just an opportunity for John Glenn to eat while he's up there. In fact, he has some quick energy sugar pills to eat if he should need some quick energy. But this is an all-important test for future trips like to the moon and the nation's manned lunar landing program. Scientists want to know how difficult it is to actually eat meat, mixed vegetables, drink water, whatever the case may be up there. So that opportunity was over the Pacific. Merrill?
We've just learned that Russia is not jamming the Voice of America relays of their own programs and this one. They are allowing the programs to go through into Russia. To Colonel Powers at Spacecraft Control.
This is Mercury Control. We have now had a summary status report from our flight controllers in Hawaii. He reports the astronaut's status was good. The status of the systems on board the spacecraft were good, except for the difficulties with the attitude control system. In a voice contact broadcast and relayed remotely to the control center, we heard astronaut John Glenn report that he is go for another orbit. Our analysis of the situation at this time is that we are in a go condition. Our flight director, Mr. Chris Kraft, has made a preliminary decision at this time that we are go and will continue the mission. This is Mercury Control with the Friendship 7 spacecraft approaching the west coast of the United States, coming around the tail end of his second orbit around the Earth. This is Mercury Control.
You've got to hand it to John Glenn. He just soon coolly sat down and said, fellas, get the computers to figure out the fuel I've got and the chances I've got. And they told him, and they're going. 3 orbits, even though he was late on launch. 3 orbits, even though he's flown entirely around the world on manual control. This is a man.
Yes, indeed, Merrill, it is a man. And Chris Kraft just lost his last chance about 40 seconds ago to make that decision of no-go on the end of the second orbit. So it's all the way here now for John Glenn on the first orbital flight of an American. And indeed, this will be a triumph in the sense that this man has flown the spacecraft very calmly all around this Earth in quite a record-breaking distance. About how much now, Merrill? 25,000 miles it should be coming up on.
Well, he started flying by wire over White Sands, New Mexico on the second orbit, and he is approaching White Sands, New Mexico right now. So it's all the way around the world, 26,000 miles. A little longer, actually, because he isn't doing the narrowest circumference.
No, at the circumference of the Earth being around 24,000, give him an additional 1,000 for being up 100 to 160 miles high.
All the way.
This is Mercury Control. The tracking station located at Point Arguello, California, made contact with the spacecraft at 12:46 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Astronaut John Glenn is in voice contact with astronaut Wally M. Schirra, the Capcom at the Point Arguello station. Their voice broadcasts are being relayed to the Mercury Control Center on a remote basis. Both voices are coming in loud and clear, and we have made the decision at this time to go for the third orbit. Astronaut John Glenn is working back and forth now with Wally Schirra, and they are discussing the pros and cons of various approaches they might take in handling this attitude control situation. They are also giving John Glenn revised retro-rocket firing times for the various contingency landing areas that are available to him throughout the third orbit. The Mercury spacecraft is now over the western coast of Mexico or Southern California, flying at the beginning of its third orbit. Astronaut John Glenn sounds good. He sounds interested and eager to perform his mission. This is Mercury Control.
That revising of the clock is very important. You notice that Colonel Power has said contingency areas. That's not the carrier Antietam and the rescue force lying out here in the Atlantic, or even the carrier Randolph, which now becomes the pickup point for the third orbit, the end of the third orbit. Those contingency areas, one's on the west coast of Africa, another one's in Africa, a third one's on the east coast. There's another one in Australia and another one in the Pacific. These are emergency areas. This is a question of fuel supply. Obviously, the computer said there was a fuel supply aboard and plenty of reserve, or they would never have committed John Glenn to the third orbit, even though he argued to do so. They would have automatically fired the retro rockets, and he would have been in his descent back toward the southeast-southwestern Atlantic by now. Where are we? 183 minutes. He is roughly... I've lost myself in my own maps. He's roughly over Corpus Christi, between White Sands, Corpus Christi, and Houston, somewhere in that area. And coming down further south, he may report seeing Cape Canaveral as he goes into the third orbit.
3 hours and 4 minutes has passed since John Glenn left this Earth from Cape Canaveral, Florida, for his now history-making flight. After speeding across the North American continent again, he is now set in 2 minutes to make his sixth 30-minute report. And this one, like the one after the first orbit, will be made directly to the Spacecraft Control Center here on Cape Canaveral. Again, Glenn is set to take his own blood pressure test by pumping up the blood pressure cuff on his arm and taking the reading and voicing it to the Spacecraft Control Center. Not if he didn't have enough to do already by flying the spacecraft on the manual control system. He must, however, give these 30-minute reports every 30 minutes and given a complete cabin reading. Now let's go over to Shorty Powers at the Spacecraft Control.
This is Mercury Control. We now have a contact with our Guaymas, Mexico station at 12:50 Eastern Standard Time, and with the Corpus Christi, Texas tracking station at 12:52. As astronaut John Glenn passed across the southern portion of the United States and began winging his way away from the Point Arguello station, he and astronaut Wally Schirra had a very interesting exchange. Schirra called him up and said, "John, the Aeromeds are very happy with you up there." Glenn replied by saying, "I feel real good, Wally. No problems at all." Schirra responded by saying, "Good show. See you next time around." The Friendship 7 spacecraft is now passing across the northern borders of Texas, across the southern United States, now committed to its third orbit. This is Mercury Control.
Everything going fine, although he is flying his mission now and using up fuel. Nonetheless, there's plenty of fuel and plenty of reserve, or he would never have been committed to this third orbit. He's running a little late on the clock, but there's plenty of daylight left for the recovery areas when it's time to bring him down and let the medics take a look at what sounds like a very normal man. He should pass over the carrier Antietam in about another 3 to 5 minutes. In any case, Canaveral and Bermuda will have him in voice communication very shortly if they don't have him there already, and we'll get a further report from Spacecraft Control shortly. His missile booster, which pushed him out into orbit, is now trailing him, still tumbling, 42 miles behind the space capsule itself. We've just learned that Mrs. Glenn, as delighted as we are with the success of this, has thrown a little impromptu party to NBC's Bryson Rash at the Glenn home in Arlington, Virginia.
Mrs. John Glenn made her first appearance at the front door of her home a short time ago. It was an errand of mercy for cold and hungry reporters who have been camped in her front lawn since before dawn. A local restaurant, with their compliments, sent over a number of baskets of fried chicken, packages of cheese rolls, and several pies for the reporters. Mrs. Glenn provided the table. With a NASA representative, she suddenly popped out of the front door, set the table on the stoop, smiled, waved, and said, "Help yourself," and was gone back to the bank of television sets in her living room to follow the progress of her husband, astronaut John H. Glenn, Jr. That's been her activity today, sitting in a small chair, occasionally on the floor, watching the progress of the shot in the orbital flight. Occasionally, she gets up to relieve the tension, walks to the kitchen or to a bedroom, or she chats quietly with her mother and father, or with the Reverend Frank Irwin, or neighbors Lieutenant Colonel Tom Miller and his wife. Bryson Rash, NBC News, at the Glenn home in Arlington, Virginia.
We are roughly 1 hour to the end of this historic flight in space. If everything goes according to schedule, he should be down in about an hour. The recovery forces are in position and, of course, are ready. They are monitoring their signals from Cape Canaveral, which is now bringing them into the pattern of reports on the operation of the capsule and the astronaut, so that they know exactly what to expect. They will have to be exactly on the timing count of the retro rocket firing. To Colonel Powers at Spacecraft Control.
This is Mercury Control. Our Atlantic tracking ship made contact with the Friendship 7 spacecraft at 1:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Friendship 7 is now proceeding toward the continent of Africa, going around in its third orbit in this first manned orbital flight of Project Mercury. This is Mercury Control.
1:12. They're 8 minutes behind us, so John Glenn is right over South Africa. There's one thing we can count on with John Glenn. You give him a course to follow, he follows it.
It stays right with it, doesn't it, Mary? We might point out, too, in exactly 1 minute, he'll do some more star observation checks, astronomer-wise, and he'll also do some more navigating. And the first and most essential navigational requirement is the impact point prediction and control. The vehicle will orbit at approximately 5 miles per second. The normal recovery zone's at the end of the orbit. Now we're going back to spacecraft control and John Powers.
Recording of astronaut John Glenn's voice in conversation with our Bermuda tracking station. Stand by for the broadcast of the tape.
Roger, this Friendship 7 has the Cape in sight down there. It looks real fine from up here. As you know.
Yes, early, Sonny.
This Friendship Florida, I can see the whole state of Florida just laid out like on a map. Beautiful. Even from this division out here, I can still see clear back to the Mississippi Delta.
This tape, you will recognize, it has been delayed. This is the tape recording of astronaut John Glenn talking to Bermuda. He is now just entering his third orbit over the Indian Ocean.
Down in the hotel on the weather, and it looks very good down that way. Looks like we'll have no problems on recovery. Yes, sir.
As near as I can compute this thing, Jay, if we go on the way we're going now, John Glenn's space capsule should splash into the Atlantic at about 2:40 Eastern Standard Time, just short of 2:40 Eastern Standard Time. I'm not on the second clock that he's on for the retro firing, but I'm not more than a couple of minutes away from him, and I can't gamble any further than 2:35 to 2:40, somewhere in there. Let's find out where he is on this clock. And incidentally, they are now busy, very busy, correcting these retro-firing clocks. and they have to make them synchronous. Glenn's in the space capsule have to coincide with those at Goddard, those at Guaymas, Mexico, those at Point Arguello, and those here at Cape Canaveral. Everybody's keeping a check on the beginning of the firing of these retros, and any one of those points can fire a retro if Glenn himself doesn't choose to do it. There's a question, too, as to whether he can do it. That question arises because in order to go into a retro firing sequence, he has to go back onto automatic pilot. He hasn't used that automatic pilot in some time. And we'll have to find out a little later whether he's going to stay on manual control and let the ground fire the rockets. To Colonel Powers at Spacecraft Control.
Our Mercury tracking station at Mouchet, Australia, at 1:43 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Astronaut John Glenn is now in voice contact with astronaut Gordon Cooper at the tracking station. Just a couple of minutes ago, John called up Gordon Cooper and said, "Hey, Gordon, I want you to send a message for me. Send a message to the Commandant of the U.S. Marine Corps that reads, have 4 hours required flight time. Request flight ship be prepared for me. Signed, John Glenn, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Marine Corps." At this time, John Glenn is in voice contact with the Mouchet tracking station and with Gordon Cooper, discussing the technical systems on board the spacecraft.
Excuse me, that's an inside joke. John Glenn just sent a bill from outer space. Lieutenant General Shoup owes him flight pay.
Spacecraft is proceeding down the third orbit and should be coming around across the Pacific within the next 15 or 20 minutes. This is Mercury Control.
All our service pilots, and John Glenn, of course, is a test pilot with the Marine Corps, but he is on leave from active duty so that he can serve in the civilian program of the NASA Space Agency. All our service pilots get flight pay. Well, there's no sense in sitting up there and working this hard without asking for it, and I couldn't agree with him more, but I think it's a wonderful sense of humor, too. Where are we? 4 hours and 2 minutes.
Since he lifted from here.
242 minutes. He's just approaching the northern territory of Australia. He's not far southeast of Darwin. This will be his last chance to see the Southern Cross, one of his observation and navigational checkpoints. It'll be his last chance, too, to see Australia at night. He's in an area where there are no large cities. There's nothing very large between Darwin and Brisbane, working from west to east across Australia. There's nothing in the area of Queensland that is big enough to show him a light pattern at his altitude. He's about to go over the southeast corner of New Guinea, well away, by the way, from the troubles between the Dutch and the Indonesians in western New Guinea. He'll then go over the slot of the Solomon Islands and head out over the Pacific. But we keep going back to the timing of the retro rocket firing, and the automatic clocks, and the ground control for the firing of those rockets, because I think we're going to have a little delicate situation here. Not dangerous, delicate. If I understand the control of the capsule correctly, John reported that every time he goes back on automatic pilot, the capsule does not correct from yaw. It goes too far. It goes 20 degrees in yaw. It was doing it for a while to the left, then to the right. That's far too much for an automatic pilot at the moment of retro firing. But he himself is able to hold the capsule on its flight path. And he himself may decide to control the capsule into its pattern for descent and let the ground fire the rockets. In any case, he's gone a long way flying by wire. And incidentally, I noticed that here at Cape Canaveral, and this, of course, is going to be exciting. One of us is going to have to get outside to watch this one. Maybe it's possible. I don't know. They've just begun to spin the radars around, facing northwest, so they can track the capsule as it descends. And in tracking the capsule, we may be able to see it as it passes over the
southern tip.
Well, it'll pass over the corner of the Gulf of Mexico, right where the Gulf washes the corner of Florida. And we may get a contrail up there as it comes down through the atmosphere. May be able to spot it by contrail long before that parachute opens. And take a look at the sky. There isn't a cloud for 1,000 miles.
This would be, I would think, quite possible, Merrill, because as you say, we have clear skies, and this is just about in the reentry phase where you'll hit the blanket of atmosphere and start etching that contrail path across. So it's quite possible we might be able to see this.
If I read the map correctly, too, Jay, he'll go almost overhead if we get a contrail. He'll come over the corner of Florida on the Gulf and come right smack over Cape Canaveral, just south of us.
Yes, just south of us. Of course, that'll be pretty much overhead in our line of vision.
Someone just asked me to bring those who joined us late up to date by trying to re-describe the drama of liftoff. Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. I can't do it. What emotion I've got left, I'm going to save for that landing, and that's going to drain us. From then on, we're going to be dead. Okay?
Well, Merrill, in 4 minutes, T-minus 4 minutes, and counting on 7 hours for you at this microphone so far.
I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about whether I can still develop any adrenaline. I'm not as cool as Glenn is.
I don't think any of us have been during the entire flight.
Just over the Solomon Islands, approximately 100 or 200 miles southwest of the Solomon Islands, right on course over the slot where President Kennedy lost his PT boat during World War II. And approaching dawn. If there is a early light of dawn in that area, we may learn later that astronaut Glenn has been able to pick out the individual Solomons, or some of them. He can only pick out the biggest ones from his altitude. This is at his peak altitude, by the way, about 160 miles up. He has started the descent down to the base altitude of his orbit, 100 miles. But in any case, the retro rockets have to be fired before he reaches that base, so that he can be brought down rapidly and landed in the approximate area of the recovery force. It's a pretty big area. It's 200 miles long by 50 miles wide. What is that? It's 10,000 square miles. That's the bullseye of the target.
10,000 square miles. Well, he's 23 minutes now from retro fire time as he comes across the Pacific. He will come practically, I believe, over Hawaii, that tracking station there. And he's probably taking a little rest along about now. He has just a few minutes to do it before he gets into buttoning down the spacecraft.
This is Mercury Control. The Mercury tracking station on Canton Island acquired the Friendship 7 spacecraft at 2:03 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The tracking station on Hawaii contacted the Friendship 7 spacecraft at 2:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As we proceeded around from Australia toward Hawaii, we detected an indication of a problem with the heat shield deployment switch. A check was made over Hawaii, which confirmed that the system was operating properly and that the signal apparently was erroneous. He is also completing now his retro-firing checklist. And this is a process by which he makes sure that all of his onboard equipment is secured, that he has checked out his attitude control system, that he is in good condition and preparing to fire those retro rockets to begin that long landing flight toward the Atlantic. This is Mercury Control.
John Glenn has apparently opted to fire his own retro rockets, to fly his own space capsule into position and fire them 1, 2, 3, 10 seconds apart while he holds that thing right on the exact line it's got to be to put him down somewhere near the carrier Randolph. Jay?
Senior of all the 7 astronauts, John Glenn, pardon me, the man that is in position to do exactly that and has proven his ability to control his Friendship 7. At this moment, this will mean a lot to a lot of pilots that we might have in our audience. John is going through his pre-retro rocket checklist with the Hawaii tracking station, the Capsule communicator. Now, the Capsule communicator will read off the checklist with Glenn confirming every detail of the pre-retro test and that it has been completed. Each item will be gone over thoroughly by the Hawaii tracking station. And Glenn, now just a few minutes before the Friendship 7 will start looking for a place on this Earth again.
Anytime within the next 4 minutes, we should have some word about the beginning of the retro firing. It should come between now and 2:20 or 2:21 Eastern Standard Time. Astronaut John Glenn, still moving 17,535 miles an hour, is approximately 750 to 800 miles west of Los Angeles over the Pacific at an altitude of about 100 miles. He will shortly begin the retro firing for descent. Jay Barbary has just told me an astounding fact, and Jay, you've got a little more than a minute and a half to explain it. The scientists have misjudged this 3-orbital flight around the world by 9 seconds.
That's correct, Merrill. The plan would have been for the flight to come at 4 hours, 32 minutes, and 28 seconds after the rocket lifted from this Earth for the retro sequence. They missed this orbit just enough to vary 3 seconds for one 24,000-mile completed trip around the Earth. Now the flight time, firing time of the retro sequence should begin at 4 hours, 32 minutes, and 37 seconds past the hour of from liftoff, and we're coming up onto that now. We're
15 seconds from now.
15 seconds from now. This is the corrected time. 10 seconds for the first firing.
5 seconds from now.
We are now at coming up on 35. We are now up on 37, and the first retro rocket should have been fired. 10 seconds apart. Glenn should have fired his second retro rocket at this moment.
These are small rockets in the base or the face of the capsule as it's flying, but they have tremendous effect and kick up there in space. We have to switch immediately to Colonel Powers at Spacecraft Control. Retro rockets should have been fired by now. They fire 10 seconds apart over an elapsed time of 30 seconds. They, of course, kick the capsule backwards from its line of flight.
This is Mercury Control. Our California station has made contact with the Friendship 7 spacecraft at 2:18 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. At 2:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the retro rocket firing sequence was initiated in the spacecraft. The retro firing attitude was assumed, and the 3 retro rockets have fired. They've been confirmed by the pilot and by our telemetry here in the Mercury Control Center. John Glenn's comment was it felt like he was going to send him clear back to Hawaii. The retro rockets have fired. The re-entry process will be initiated shortly. This is Mercury Control.
3,200 miles away, dropping rapidly now from the California coast to the southwestern Atlantic. He's got to lose over 100 miles an altitude, over 17,500 miles an hour of speed. His landing speed in the Atlantic should be about 20 miles per hour. So now he undergoes tremendous strain, tremendous heat, but he is on course and on time, and the drop should be within 5 or 10 miles of one of the 3 ships out there in the recovery area. Jay?
Has about 9 minutes of this to go through. After the retro rocket's fired, the exhausted rocket package should have been jettisoned, and the spacecraft will automatically assume its correct re-entry attitude, of course, with John Glenn holding it there. This should have occurred about 1 minute after the retro rocket sequence and should have been completed at this time. The next maneuver for the Friendship 7 is to point its blunt end of the bell-shaped spacecraft toward the Earth on the proper trajectory for re-entry. This will be the spacecraft's re-entry position so that the astronaut will have his back against the forces of re-entry, traveling backwards for the G-forces and the heat of the atmosphere. He reported the 3 retro kicks as being quite tremendous.
He should now be descending somewhere in the area between White Sands, New Mexico, and Corpus Christi, Texas, passing just north of Corpus Christi and Houston. But we'll have to check that out a little faster with some arithmetic. Anybody got a sharpened pencil? In any case, his descent is going to be just below White Sands, New Mexico, just north of Corpus Christi, Texas, just north of Houston, almost over New Orleans, the corner of Florida at the Gulf of Mexico, almost over Canaveral, just south of Cape Canaveral, and down over the Bahama Islands, where incidentally he will be taken this evening for 48 hours of rest and debriefing at Grand Turk, and then into the basin where the Randolph and 2 destroyers are cruising, waiting to pick him up. That's about 1,000 miles southeast of us, and about 700 miles southeast of the Bahamas. All weather is clear. Everything is ready, and John Glenn is descending to Colonel Powers at Spacecraft Control.
Spacecraft at 2:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have confirmation of retro-rocket firing. We have instructed John Glenn to retain his retro-rocket packet at least until he gets over Texas. This is a precautionary measure to double-check on the seemingly erroneous switch location indication we had earlier. John feels he held his attitude properly during the retro-rocket firing process and says that he can see the coast of California. He's now reporting cloud cover down toward Mexico. The spacecraft is now arcing down on its landing trajectory toward the Atlantic. This is Mercury Control.
He's taking tremendous control of that thing.
Apparently, he's still in the 34 degrees tilt with a horizontal in case they do have to refire the retro rockets for any reason at all. He must get rid of this retro rocket package, Merrill, before he can tilt it down the blunt end to hit the heat.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jay, because I've just been asked to make a switch, and I don't think we should switch at this time. The procedures are out of whack. We better stand by with this space capsule till we've got it safely spotted in the atmosphere. We're going to do so.
One thing for sure, Merrill, this is the most critical and part of the entire flight. At this moment coming up.
That retro package has to be jettisoned before he comes into the atmosphere, too deep in the atmosphere, because it has to be off the capsule before he hits the Atlantic.
This is true before he can drop his blunt end, hit the blanket of atmosphere about 50 miles high. And he'll be slowing down quite a bit before then, but he's got to have that blunt end to take that 3,000 degrees temperature. That's hot.
Incidentally, if any of the people in Texas are worried about whether they might have a piece of titanium flying out of space to hit them on the head, don't worry. It'll burn up before it even reaches the ground. But it's got to be dropped somewhere over the state of Texas, somewhere between El Paso and Corpus Christi. We'll get the word from spacecraft control in a moment.
That's what I started to say. All we can do is wait now. This is the critical moment, and he should be in the water in about 6 minutes. About 6 minutes.
Jay, do you want to go out and you want to take my glasses and go out and see if you can spot any contrails? Because we should be picking up some contrails in a couple of minutes, all things being equal. Will you try that?
I sure will, Merrill.
Take that portable microphone with you, will you? Because if you pick anything up, just holler at me, and you got it.
Okay.
Excuse us for producing on the air, but right now we don't know where we stand, and we have a little problem, so has John Glenn, and we're going to stick with him until that problem is solved because it affects his recovery. It doesn't mean he's in any greater danger. It just means that it could make the landing rougher, and we're going to watch it out. 4:39, approximately 11 minutes to go, a little bit more than 11 minutes to go to splash. We should get some word pretty soon about the cleansing of the capsule, if I may use that word. Right now it's carrying extraneous material. That extraneous material is on the bottom of the capsule. So is some flotation gear. So is sonar gear, so that ships at sea can pick up the capsule if no one sees it. So is chaff, so that the radar-carrying airplanes can read the capsule by radar. All of those things are in the bottom of the capsule, and that retro package has to be dumped before those things become operative. Four hours and 40 minutes since launch. And Jay is out where he can scan the sky. And Jay, are you able to see anything out there where you are?
Yes, Merle, we have a contrail over the southern tip of Florida at this time. It's beginning to get heavier as it etches itself across the sky. However, we cannot confirm that this is the spacecraft Friendship 7, but it's in the proper position, and it could very well be so at this time. We're watching this contrail.
The southern tip, is it to the southwest?
Yes, this is correct. It's to the southwest. I've had my directions mixed up slightly here, Merrill. But you are correct. It is slightly to the southwest.
Coming down over the Gulf of Mexico.
This is true. It is pretty much in that area, and it's headed on the right course. I do not think that this is a high-flying aircraft. It could very well be the Friendship 7. However, I say we cannot confirm it. This is just about the right trajectory. And it seems to be getting lower in the atmosphere, Merrill.
If it's lower, Jay, we're a little early. I'm afraid that's going to turn out to be one of the jets looking for him.
It could very well be a chase
We're a little
plane.
too early for that geographical position, Jay. Go further to the west, to your northwest. Sweep that way. Remember, there are about 12 or 14 jets up between here and New Orleans, and we've got to expect those jets to show contrails in that whole area, so you've got to look for one starting very high and dropping very fast, about 5 times the speed of that jet. Jay, incidentally, we've just got word that everything is going according to plan. We don't know about the jettisoning of the retro package, but apparently it has been jettisoned, and Glenn's space capsule will touch down at about 2:37 Eastern Standard Time.
Yes,
about 7 minutes from now, Jay.
Well, then this would be quite early, Merrill, for the contrail we see high overhead here that we thought was a possibility of being the spacecraft Friendship 7. However, we will keep our eyes peeled to the west just in case we see this.
Swing more toward the northwest. He's above you. He's behind you from the area you're apparently sweeping now. We go now in a few moments, Jay, so don't cut in, please, for a few moments. We're going to get some late word from Spacecraft Control.
This is Mercury Control. Friendship 7 spacecraft is approaching the coast of Florida at this time during his re-entry process. We have advised him that the weather in his landing area involves 1/10 cloud cover and 10 miles visibility. This should not present any hazard at all during the landing operation. He is now maintaining control of the spacecraft using the fly-by-wire system and the manual system as a backup. This is Mercury Control.
This is absolutely fantastic that a man can control this thing in the tremendous changes of altitude and speed and pressures and heat that he is going through, and that the capsule itself is going through. We are about 5 minutes from touchdown, a little over 5 minutes from touchdown. Keep your eyes peeled, Jay. Your mic is live. Just let us know if you spot that contrail.
We're watching the west now as he's approaching us here, Merrill. If we see anything, we'll let you know right away. Obviously, the first contrail was a high-flying jet.
The giant radar screen below us on the Cape here, has swung around and is pointing northwest and still tracking slightly, left to right, trying to pick up. It must have something. It's just hung on to something and glued. No, it's still swinging slightly. It has suddenly glued, Jay, so it's on to something. It's begun swinging now in a very gentle turn down toward the southeast. Very gentle. It must be tracking the capsule so they know exactly where he is, altitude, speed, and everything else.
We might add from out here at this time just one thought, Merrill. This man is indeed a test pilot. This marks a big difference between this nation's astronauts.
East coast of Florida. He is encountering the atmosphere. We estimate that an ionization layer involved in the reentry process is preventing us from having direct communication with him. This is Mercury Control.
The ionization in the atmosphere means that at any moment, and we are speaking now behind him, we cannot keep up with the pace of his descent, neither can spacecraft control. At any moment, the drogue chute will come out. That little drogue chute, it's not so little, is designed, of course, to help slow down the capsule after it's in the atmosphere, slow it down even further. It'll be doing about 1,500 miles an hour when it first enters the atmosphere, and friction begins to slow it down. It is slowing it down now, of course, but from 1,500, friction will begin to slow it down to about 270 when the drogue comes out. That drogue will flap for a while to slow him down a little more, and then the giant chute follows it out. The 63-foot chute, which is designed to land this capsule at 20 miles an hour into a calm Atlantic and a clear day. We should have that word on the chute on the chute itself, the parachute, at any moment.
Have an indication that receiving equipment at Grand Bahama Island is receiving beacon transmissions from the spacecraft. We are not receiving any voice communication at this time. On the basis of his present flight trajectory, we estimate that he will land within about a mile of a destroyer associated with the USS Randolph at the end of the third orbit. This is Mercury Control.
Around the world astronaut. Number 3 helicopter contains the doctor in case there's any trouble, but we do not expect that. pilot at the command of the Marine helicopter team, and they are heading northward from the ship. Apparently,
Bill down.
the recovery area
Can you stop
by
him,
the
Bob?
helicopters. Following are 3 other helicopters, which carry NASA technicians and the official photographers. Piloting the recovery helicopter is Major Will Nelson of Wood River, Illinois, who has been a veteran and doing capsule recovery work since the NASA project started. His co-pilot is Lieutenant Frank Bird of Fox River Grove, Illinois. They are now heading around in a circle around the ship. We have not yet seen any sign of the drogue parachute, a 6-foot affair that opens up at about 40,000 feet to add stability to the flowing capsule. It is a perfect day here for this kind of an operation. The sky is unblemished. There is on the horizon just a few scattering of clouds. Otherwise, above us and in the recovery area, ceiling unlimited. A wind of about 15 knots, or about 16 to 18 miles an hour is blowing. We are heading into that wind at about 15 or 20 knots and sailing eastward. On either side of us are the destroyers Nora and Stripling, about 40 miles away. In the event there is an under or overshoot. The basic plan.
John Glenn's parachute should be in sight now from one of the orbiting aircraft, circling aircraft, and we have heard, as you heard, although it was garbled because one of the ship transmissions came in on top of it, Colonel Powers reported that Glenn would land within about 1 mile of a destroyer, not the carrier Randolph. That means that either of the destroyers, I didn't get its name, so I can't identify whether it's the one cruising north of the Randolph or the one cruising south of the Randolph, but he is going to land about 1 mile from one of the ships. Therefore, these helicopters have to get from the Randolph out to that destroyer area and then spot the capsule. The destroyer itself should be picking up some kind of vision sighting now, eyeball sighting as they call it here. But in any case, the circling aircraft and the naval ships at sea should begin to read the signals that are dropping out of the space capsule itself, the chaff on radar, the sonar signal from the capsule when it hits the ocean, or even the dye markers for the high-flying aircraft. The capsule drops dye markers, which indicate its approximate landing position. All of these things help pinpoint him, and he should be on the water now at any moment. But we have no visual sighting yet, and we're going to try to keep this thing going until somebody comes up with a visual sighting.
He should have hit the water just at this moment, as you pointed out, Merrill, according to the time given by Spacecraft Control Center moments ago from the reentry. Now, we have no confirmation that the drogue chute was deployed.
They say that they have tracked this capsule. The drogue chute should be opening. If it has not already opened, you want to watch for it off to the right and slightly ahead of the ship. And if you can be seen at all, it should be over there. Just a few seconds, the main chute is open. They say that the drogue chute has opened. We are looking directly into the sun. It's practically impossible to see into this bright tropic sun. However, they have spotted the beautiful chute at 10,800 feet. A beautiful sight at 10,800 feet. We are still very good.
Main chute is open. It is a little northwest of the carrier Randolph.
Spotting it. Have you spotted it through the sun, Mel? No. I have a lieutenant spotter down here. He has not yet seen it. Somebody with better eyes, or at least sunglasses of deeper hue than mine, has seen it. It is a beautiful sight. We have not yet seen it.
The carrier bridge is reporting it on the ship's own speaker system.
The copters, though, are still circling slightly ahead of the ship. We are again circling more to the south and to the west.
Chute to drop from 10,000 feet.
The radar tracking say the drogue chute has opened. I have yet to see anyone that's on board ship that has spotted the main chute.
Radar says it has
The
opened.
rescue copters are still circulating.
In any case, we pointed out earlier, John Glenn is going to land closer to one of the destroyers. Each is 50 miles away from the carrier. And since they are circling to the south and west, it must be the northern destroyer. They must be coming around on course.
As far as I can find out, no one has yet spotted it. Just a moment. Have you seen it? Should be up. We have not been able to spot this ship with the naked eye, and it should be perhaps more to the west. We are turning in that direction. The rescue copters have not yet headed for the rescue area or the splash area.
They probably won't head off until the capsule is down, since it will be out of the range of immediate contact with the helicopters. The capsule certainly is being circled now by...
The rescue copters are now heading They are summoning the destroyer Noah to head for the area which is west, which would mean that the capsule would drop someplace between the Randolph What now? Did you have contact with the... Lieutenant, do you have contact with the capsule as yet?
Long-range aircraft are circling
They
that
do not have
capsule. That's
contact
almost
with the capsule.
certain,
He has
since
not
the
been
huge
spotted.
chute is open.
Whatever radar tracking that was, it was not a valid track, apparently. Now, the copters have been ordered to the west. It apparently has been a undershoot, if you want to call it that. In other words, the capsule did not fly over the carrier, and the U.S. Noah, the destroyer Noah, under the command of J.D. Exum, now reports to the carrier that the Noah does have the capsule in sight and is on its way.
The Noah is equipped to pick up the capsule at sea and underway if necessary.
And if they recover Colonel Glenn, he'll give us a welcome he's never had before. The competition on this force, as you know, has been terrific, and particularly as these...
John Glenn's capsule must be in the water by now, but Noah is on its way. There must be aircraft overhead, and those helicopters will go off regardless, because the helicopters...
Now developed that there is a race between the helicopters to get to Colonel Glenn and the destroyer Noah.
If the helicopters get there first, it means Randolph, Red.
If necessary, they might throw ketchup bottles at the choppers. They have the honor to make this historic rescue. The Noah would be about 20 to 30 miles straight ahead of us to the west, a little to the southwest. The ship is not in sight. It is impossible to see the capsule, and we did not see the drogue chute, nor did we see the main 63-foot capsule chute either. The reports coming into the ship.
That's about 30 minutes steaming for the Noah.
Capsule is in sight. Is there any word, Lieutenant, of the astronaut's condition? The Noah has the capsule in sight, is the only thing we've got. The Noah has the capsule in sight. 55 miles from the Randolph. It is now 55 miles from the Randolph, and we will make then full steam toward that area, rendezvous with the helicopters, which would take us about what? About a half hour, I would think. Maybe an hour? In other words, this was
the race that Bill Downs was telling you about from the carrier Randolph means essentially this. The helicopters with faster flying speed can get to the capsule first, and pick out John Glenn, pick out the astronaut himself, and just hold the capsule level and buoyant until the NOAA comes alongside with its recovery gear and the NOAA can pick up the capsule. The NOAA is about 30 minutes steaming from the capsule location. The helicopters could be there in approximately, well, the minute they take off, they could be there in less than 2 minutes. But they're being held on the deck because it gives them longer fuel range over the capsule, and they want that because if there's any further emergency, although there's no reason to believe there should be one now, if they need it, they'll have the gas in the tanks for any problem that might arise.
We just have a word here, Merrill, that Colonel Glenn has been advised to stay inside his spacecraft, Friendship 7, if he can. However, if necessary, he can come out of that spacecraft, float around in his own life raft.
The problem here, of course, is not to let that door blow prematurely and let any waves get in, but these waves are very flat today. Nevertheless, it'd be silly to take any chance now. And when there's a chopper overhead and hooked up, John Glenn can take the option of blowing the door, climbing up into the helicopter, and he probably will, in which case, as you pointed out, Jay, he'll be flown back to the Randolph. Or he has the option of saying, I'm going to sit tight, swing me aboard, you gobs, and the destroyer will pick him up.
Mr. Kennedy would appreciate it.
He's apparently floating in the water there, completing all of his
I don't know whether you
checks.
could find out what happened. There's been a certain amount of confusion here. The capsule landed completely out of our sight over the horizon where the NOAA, the destroyer NOAA, commanded by Captain J.D. Exum, is now in the process of racing the Marine helicopters to recover the capsule and get the first look and have a first talk with Colonel John Glenn after his historic 3 times around the Earth in the ionosphere.
Bill Downs is indicating.
Here's another.
Bill Downs is indicating one of the helicopters has taken off. It should be over the capsule in a couple of minutes, in which case it will be in voice communication with John Glenn, and Cape Canaveral will be able to read that voice communication. Whether they release it to us or not is something else.
Speed up to 21 knots and try to get to the recovery scene as soon as possible.
Only a bad tear in the huge parachute could cause any emergency at this point, because in this weather and sea condition, if the chute opened intact, that landing would be so soft that John Glenn will probably be sitting there calmly checking out his spacecraft and closing down the switches and probably musing about a book, if any. And Al Shepard or Gus Grissom may have sent him some short stories to read while he's waiting. Incidentally, Glenn, of course, is in radio communication with Cape Canaveral. He has not lost any communication just because the capsule's sitting on the water. He has a 16-foot antenna which popped out of the back of it just before he hit the water, and that antenna is now his means of communication with Cape Canaveral, so that they know he's all right, or we would hear differently.
The advice for him to stay in the spacecraft indicates, Merrill, that they were in voice contact with him after he hit the water.
5 hours even since we launched this morning.
5 hours since the liftoff of Atlas 109D and spacecraft Friendship 7. All objectives apparently completed.
All and more.
Little bonuses thrown in.
3 left to go, 4 really. A dry landing for John Glenn on the ship, on the destroyer or on the carrier. About 45 hours of rest at Grand Turk in the Bahamas for medical examination and debriefing. A hero's reception in Washington.
Surely a medal from the president.
And a family reunion.
We're still waiting word. Bill Downs, our reporter aboard the USS Randolph, the recovery, the aircraft carrier in charge of the recovery task force down there. As he explained, apparently the spacecraft Friendship 7 landed about 50 miles from them over the horizon, and the destroyer NOAA is closer to it. And now the helicopters from the Randolph and also the destroyer Noah are closing in to pick up the capsule, and the race is on. Still no word from spacecraft control and Colonel John Powers here, and I'm assuming he is waiting for a definite word of pickup before we will hear. As Merrill pointed out, if something has gone wrong, I'm sure we would know about it by now.
The spotting of the parachute was so early and so clear, at least it was clear to the ship and also was clear to spacecraft control here at Cape Canaveral, that it was identified instantly, and I would explain that while Bill Downs did not hear it and was not aware of it, this is because the circuits to us are not the same as the circuits to him. He is not in communication with Cape Canaveral and spacecraft control as we are. Therefore, he must rely on the information relayed over the ship and what he can see, what we call eyeball reporting.
Mercury Control.
There's the first official word from Mercury Control that NOAA is closing in on the spacecraft Friendship 7 at the moment.
We'll get some more word on the condition of the capsule and the astronaut just as soon as the helicopter makes radio contact with it, or the NOAA starts putting a sling onto it, and the helicopter then either stands by, it has to be waved away as a matter of fact, so the NOAA can put a sling onto the capsule, or the helicopter goes in, snips that radio mast, and picks John Glenn out of there and carries him off to the Randolph. I don't think the Navy, however, or I beg your pardon, I don't think the sailors are going to let a Marine pilot get away with picking up a Marine astronaut.
It's been about 12 minutes, Merrill, since he hit the water. This will indeed be a fast recovery the way it goes. And I believe the seas down there are much calmer this afternoon than on the flights of Shepard and Grissom, as a matter of fact.
Let's see, we launched at 9:47 this morning, Eastern Standard Time. Splash was about 2:42 Eastern Standard Time. That's roughly 5 hours short of what? It's 5 hours short of 5 hours. 5 minutes short of 5 hours. 4 hours and 55 minutes. The approximate flight time from launch to splash. We'll get the exact time as soon as somebody gives me a computer and I can figure it out, or Goddard tells us what it is. We're going to try to go back to the carrier Randolph. She's steaming full steam, too, toward the capsule. In fact, all ships and planes would naturally converge on it. And the Randolph has been able to throw out its helicopters, 3 of them. They're all equipped with everything they may need, including medics who are ready to jump, and scuba divers ready to help. And I think we can go back now to Bill Downs aboard the carrier Randolph.
Captain Max Burns, skipper of the Randolph, reports that the destroyer Noah, which is now heading for Colonel Glenn's capsule, was in radio contact with the colonel as he was descending in the main parachute. However, after this radio contact, there has been no further contact in the splash after the splash in. The NOAA now is expected to arrive within the next 5 minutes at the capsule, as will the recovery helicopters from the carrier Randolph. The Randolph is expected to be in the capsule area within the next 45 to 50 minutes. However, Colonel Glenn, we do know, survived the re-entry into the atmosphere. His capsule and parachute were reported open. He is doing well. But we do not have any report of his condition. We don't have any report of his condition after the splash in. It looks good, and we are on the way, and I will keep you posted. This is Bill Downs aboard the carrier Randolph, 1,000 miles southeast of Cape Canaveral.
Although the carrier itself is some 40 minutes away, as Bill Downs just explained, the minute a helicopter picks up astronaut John Glenn, if that is the decision, the helicopter can get him back to that carrier deck in less than 10 minutes. So we may have total recovery before the carrier even gets to the site of the capsule. In which case, if the helicopter does pull John Glenn aboard, the destroyer Noah will hook onto the capsule and pull it aboard, so that both are safely back in the hands of Earthlings.
Yes, the spacecraft Friendship 7 could very well go aboard the destroyer Noah And Glenn could, as you pointed out, Merrill, go aboard the Randolph. Now it's just a waiting game again after the historic flight. And apparently Glenn is sitting there calmly in his spacecraft Friendship 7 saying, I've made it. Now come get me.
3 orbits around the world, 2 of them in flying control of the attitude of his capsule, including its descent. A fantastic performance, and 2 major world records for the Russians to try for.
Merrill, this just in from our little birdies. Mercury Control is in contact with the capsule and is presently talking to astronaut John Glenn as he sits in the water.
Well, he's apparently good and healthy. If he's still chattering, he's been chattering all the way around this world.
He's probably demanding that flight pay. He might have jumped it from 4 hours to 5 hours by now, you know.
That's a thought. He's got extra time there.
So you take more time? Well, all right. More flight pay.
Somebody just about now should be in contact with the capsule. I mean physical contact, because the helicopters can drop a cable aboard, hook onto it, and stabilize it, and then make their determination by communicating with Glenn as to whether he's going to blow the hatch and climb out, or whether he's going to sit there until the NOAA pulls up alongside and gets a crane tilted over the side and just hooks him on like a great big fish.
Being a Marine, though, he'll probably go with a helicopter.
Well, I think he would like to make this a total success, and to make it a total success, he'll probably blow the hatch and wave to the destroyer and climb up into the helicopter. He's a great sportsman on the water, by the way. He loves to water ski, loves to swim, and he loves to ride around in high-speed boats. So there's no problem there. If the hatch blows and there's any problem about waves, which at the moment there is not, he is in the same condition to save himself as Gus Grissom was when we had the accidental explosion of the hatch and higher waves which flooded the capsule and lost it. It sank, of course. Not in this same area. It was north of this immediate area.
Here I am at 28, Merrill, and I can't run 5 miles a day. This man's still doing it at 40, 41, 42.
Well, he's done a wonderful job today, and he sure deserves to relax and take it easy. And he probably feels better than we do.
Without a doubt.
We've just been told, Jay, that we expect a statement from President Kennedy from the White House just as soon as astronaut John Glenn is picked out of the water. President Kennedy is standing by at the White House for a report to the nation and to the world as soon as John Glenn is safely aboard, carrier or destroyer, and the rescue forces are gathered around him. It's just a question of which one picks him up. He is in voice communication with Cape Canaveral, and as far as we know, everything is fine.
This statement from the President, Merrill, could very easily be our first word under the circumstances.
That's correct. It could be, Jay, because the lines between here and Goddard and the White House would be as good, or if not better, than any other means of the communication, because the lines from the carrier to us are much weaker in signal. So that Canaveral feeding the signal into the White House and into President Kennedy could indicate to President Kennedy, he would hear it himself, that Glenn has been picked up and is safely aboard one of the ships and in good condition, and the President could just take the microphone.
I'm sure the President, as all Americans are today, are very proud of the history-making trip by astronaut John Herschel Glenn, Jr., 40-year-old Marine Lieutenant Colonel, now floating or possibly aboard the destroyer NOAA, one of the helicopters from the aircraft carrier Randolph.
This is Mercury Control. The reports from the USS NOAA indicate the Friendship 7 spacecraft was picked up clear of the water at 1 minute after 3 and finally set down on the deck at 4 minutes after 3 this afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. John Glenn reports, "My condition is excellent." They're in the process now of opening up the spacecraft to remove John Glenn from the spacecraft. This is Mercury Control. The spacecraft has been set on the deck of the USS NOAA.
Mission complete. Total success. If John Glenn doesn't get a promotion out of that one, no one deserves it more.
He certainly should get that flight paycheck, I would think.
The spacecraft Friendship 7 is on the deck. It was set on the deck at 4 minutes after 3 Eastern Standard Time this afternoon. Astronaut John Glenn reports, "My condition is excellent." He is in continuous contact with the people on the ship. This is Mercury Control. Astronaut John Glenn is in voice communications with the USS Noah. He has just advised the people on board the Noah that he will assist in removing a small pressure bulkhead so that he can crawl up through the narrow upper neck of the spacecraft. This is Mercury Control. Evidently Control. We are still awaiting a report from the USS Noah that astronaut John Glenn has in fact come out of the Friendship 7 spacecraft. They are in voice communication and working together to make the arrangements for him to get out of the spacecraft. This is Mercury Control.
What that apparently means is the hatch is off and John is in the neck of the capsule. And now it's a question of wiggling out. And he'll need some help with this. But he's got the help. He's already helped the sailors undo the hatch. Now they'll probably haul him out of there. They better handle him gently. Not because he can't take it, but they're probably more excited than we are. To Colonel Powers at Spacecraft Control.
This is Mercury Control. Because of difficulties in clearing the way overhead at the upper neck of the spacecraft, crew members aboard the USS Noah have now decided to blow the side hatch and let John Glenn come out that side hatch.
They're going to blow it instead of taking it off.
This is a little tricky.
The radio reports from the USS Noah indicate the hatch is now blown clear.
No problem.
Astronaut John Glenn should be stepping out of the spacecraft any moment now.
That's the quick way.
That's the easy way, yes. But the point is that the crew of the destroyer Noah had to be very certain of two things. First, that the spacecraft was so sitting on the deck that that hatch faced the open sea. And secondly, that the spacecraft was tied by a very tight and very strong steel cable to the boom aboard the ship so that the kick of that window didn't start a whole new series of troubles. But it's gone. It's open. John Glenn is breathing his own natural atmosphere again, that which belongs to all mankind, and he's about to step out.
It's hard to believe just 5 hours and 34 minutes ago he left here aboard the Atlas 109D to make 3 trips around the Earth over 75,000 miles. Now he's back.
He's been in that capsule, by the way, 5 hours and 34 odd minutes. And we'll just wait now for the word that he has stepped on the deck, and as soon as we get that word, we hope to let Spacecraft Control tell you about it. Colonel Powers.
This is Mercury Control. A report from the USS Noah downrange indicates Mercury astronaut John Glenn has left the Friendship 7 spacecraft. He is reported to be a hale and hearty astronaut after having successfully flown the United States' first manned orbital flight. U.S. astronaut John Glenn is on the deck of the USS Noah, is reported to be a hale and hearty astronaut after his history-making flight. And this is Mercury Control.
Washington, D.C., the White House, the President of the United States.
I know that I express the great happiness and thanksgiving of all of us that Colonel Glenn has completed his trip, and I know that this is particularly felt by Mrs. Glenn and his 2 children. A few days ago, Colonel Glenn came to the White House and visited me, and he was, as are the other astronauts, a kind of American of whom we are most proud. Some years ago, as a Marine pilot, he raced the sun across this country and lost. And today, he won. I also want to say a word for all those who participated with Colonel Glenn at Canaveral. They faced many disappointments and delays. The burdens upon them were great, but they kept their heads and they made a judgment, and I think their judgment's been vindicated. We have a long way to go in the space race. We started late, but this is the new ocean, and I believe the United States must sail on it. and be in a position second to none. Some months ago, I said that I hoped that every American would serve his country. Today, Colonel Glenn served his, and we all express our thanks to him.